Hey guys, it's Vandy as about your Craft Vanguard deck profile, so hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and let's sorry. This time we are covering DZ set 7 for Liael, Odium, and Dark States. So just like Liael Ambrota, Liael Odium got some really good support cards coming out of the set, and it would be a shame not to show a deck profile on it. So let's get this started, shall we, and see what we have. First of today, we have our energy generator. It's our ride deck crest. You may only have one ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you would ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you win second energy charge 3, continuous, you may have a 10 energy in auto, beginning your ride phase energy charge 3, and then act once per turn, energy plus 7, draw a card. All around is pretty solid because you get a free 3 energy every turn. On top of that, if you end up having spare energy, you get to energy plus 7 to draw a card, and you get an extra 3 if you go second. That's really helpful because one of our main support cards in an Anchoress Dragon kills your opponent's rear guards by spamming out a lot of energy, and we also have another really good support card that does require energy blast as well, so it's nice having the energy generator get us 3 free energy every turn so we can try to consistently use those guys. So obviously it's in the deck because it's required, but also because it's really helpful. Moving on to our starter, we have Gear Quetzal Sweeping Distance, grades will boost 5k shield, 6k base, auto road upon if you second draw card. It's a standard starter, nothing too special, it's a free draw if you go second. None of the ride line really requires Gear Quetzal, so you can make this any starter you want. I choose to make it Gear Quetzal though because I like using the canonical ride line of every deck. I also really love how Gear Quetzal has like actual Dark States buildings in the background. I think it's rare that like any unit it has like the background of their nation in there outside of like technically Dragon Empire because it's just a wasteland, but I find it really fun that Gear Quetzal is like actually soaring over Dark States buildings. I think that's just cool. So either way, one of them in the ride deck. Moving on to our triggers, we have one copy of our Over Trigger and Terrifying Wicked Dragon King Van Freeze. Grades will boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Over Trigger, you have Over Trigger in your deck. When build as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one mutes, it gets +1 for a turn, and when it during draft track activate, it's a death effect which you the player get during your turn. All your vanguards get plus 10,000 power and +1 critical to the end of this fight. All around pretty solid because if you do drive check this for the entirety of the game, once your turn hits, your vanguard will always have a critical trigger on it, meaning your opponent always has to guard it. You can use Volnut for more consistent multi-attack, but I would much prefer Van Freeze because the vanguard's attack is technically always the weakest, and having a vanguard that will always have triple drive that will always need to be guarded is just really good in my opinion. So one copy of Van Freeze. Moving on to our normal triggers, we have 3 copies of Direful Doll Bethany. Grades will boost 50k shield, 5k base. You can make this any crit you want. I choose to make it Bethany because she was the canonical critical trigger for Ursa Largest, and because all of the triggers that were canonical for the DZ set start bosses were canonical for the Faded ones, and those triggers were canonical for the Destined ones, I chose to run them in all of those decks, which means Bethany is the canonical trigger for Odium. But again, you can make this any crit you want. Though I do recommend 4 copies of Stem Deviate Dragon. Grades will boost, 15k shield, 4k base, auto rear guard at the end about that boosted. Shove the soul, give someone 2k. That 2k will never make the difference because all your units will be hitting for magic numbers anyways, but you want to run it just in case for that soul reason because one of our really good support cards does cost soul, and while you won't necessarily run into a soul problem, you will definitely hit that edge where if you had one more soul blast, you would hit that soul problem. So total of 7 crit for the pressure, and I do recommend at least 4 of them be Stem Deviate. And we have 4 draws and Rouse while Master Riley. Grades will boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continuous guard circle. If your opponent's vanguard is a grade 3 guard, add 5,000 to the shield. So you know she's a 10k shield once your opponent hits grade 3, and she's a draw trigger, so she increase the hand. Liael Odium tends to have deck out problems, but I don't really mind them because it takes a lot to get to the deck out point, and I'm comfortable with the 4 draws being there. I say that, and of course I've never lost with the 4 draws being there, but my friend lost with the 4 draws being there. So yeah, Riley's a thing that can cost you the game, but otherwise she's a nice way to increase the hand and keep you in the game. So we have a total of 4 draws and 7 crits, wrapping it up with 4 heals and Joyful Songster. Grades will boost, 50k shield, 5k base, standard heal, nothing special. You can make this any heal you want. Again, I choose to make it this heal because just like Bethany, this is the quote-unquote canonical heal for Ursa Largest, which means the quote-unquote canonical heal for Liael Odium. On to our grade 1s, we'll want to talk about our Destined Timepiece token first. This is pretty much the most important card in the deck because the deck physically cannot function without this card. So grade 1 set order, this represents a Destined Timepiece token. It cannot be put into the main deck. Continuous order zone, you cannot ride a grade 3 or greater cards without Liael in their card names, and you also get regress gauges. So all around is pretty solid because well, yes, that means you can't go off to a different Liael once you ride into Liael Odium. The best part is you can have regress gauge, which pretty much allows your entire deck to become live. Moving on to our actual grade 1s, 3 copies of Ablaze Chimera. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto plus on rear guard circle. If your vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Liael, CB1 to check the top 5, choose up to 1 grade through this card from Mudlam, call it to rear guard circle, shuffle the deck. Cool, it's a simple CB1, call a rear guard, and unlike most units that plays from deck, he can can be placed from deck by his own skill and still proc himself off, which is great. So it's a nice way to fill the board and bully down your opponent. The only downside is it does eat into the CB a little bit, but hey, that's why you only really use a Blaze Chimera when you're trying to fill a board and you have nothing but triggers in your hand. So 3 copies of Blaze Chimera, good card to just create a board with, and worst case scenario, it's a grade 1 you can early rush it with, so 3 of. That takes us over to Direful Doll Patience. I want to say it's a really good card because I get the intention behind it, but after I've shoved her into my deck, I'm consistently running into the problem that she is meant to fix, which I don't know if that makes me feel better. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, and Direful Doll Patience. Auto placed on rearguard circle. If your vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Liael, Energy Blast 2, choose up to 1 grade 3 normal order without regardless piece from your drop zone or that's in your damage zone that's face up. Put it to your hand. If you put from your damage zone, put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face up. So pretty much your most important order, the Distorted Bane that you need for this deck to function, she can pull from your drop zone if you use it as discard fodder or if you soul blast it, or she can pull it from your damage zone and add it back to your hand, which all around is pretty good. My issue with this is, since I've put Patience in this deck, I have consistently drawn the order less, and by drawn, I don't mean I've damage checked it more, soul charged it more, I mean it just stays in deck, which is the one place she can't search it from, which kind of sucks. I mean, I know why she's here, it's just that it doesn't help me. You can definitely run the grade 1 that like sends any order that isn't a Regalia's piece from deck to drop zone and then allows you to proc it. I just choose not to do that because I really want to like run Liael specific support cards, but yeah, be smart, run that card over this just because I've had really bad luck with this card. And then continues rear guard. If you have 2 or more regress gauges, this unit gets 5,000 power. So I mean 13k base once you have 2 regress gauges, which is different from the normal 3, which means the one you get from the grade 2 Vanguard and the one you'll get from Liael Odium's first attack is great, so you don't have to worry about getting a 3rd regress gauge. So worst case scenario, if you do break, she's a 13k base regardless, so she's a solid 3 of. She does get you your order once it hits the drop zone or damage zone, and she is the easy 13k base. Just the only downside is she has made me not draw the order as often as I used to, so take that as you will. On to 3 copies of Steam Maiden Zimri. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, continues rear guard circle. During the battle that she boosted, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Liael, she gets 5,000 power, and then auto rear guard when this unit boosted a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Liael in the card name, she gets another 2,000. At the end of that battle, you can retire her to counter charge 1 or energy charge 3. So she's a 13k base the second you hit grade 3 Liael, and regardless of what she's boosting, she'll be a 13k base. But if she's specifically boosting your Vanguard, she will be a 15k base, and not to mention the fact that at the end of that battle, you either get your counterblast back that you can spam out with a Blaze Chimera or your other units, or you'll get 3 free energy, which you can then spam out with your other units that require energy. All around, Zimri is a really good support card. She increases your resources for literally only the cost of retiring herself, and she is a 13 or 15k booster depending where she is on the board. Normally, I don't like these grade 1s, but she was the first one where I was like, okay, I'm going to find a way to shove her into Liael because honestly, her ability to give resources is very good. So 3 copies of her. You don't want to have 4 copies because you would rather just have like the overall offensive pressure of your grade 2 and above units, but Zimri's really nice for keeping up with the resource gain. That brings us over to 4 copies of RPG and Ridicule Disruptor. Grade 1 boost, 0 souls, K base, contains Sentinel, or 4 Sentinels in deck and also put on guard circle. Choose on units, it cannot be hit in the battle if your hand has 2 or more cards in it. Choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means if this is only one of the cards in your hand placed on guard circle, you don't have to discard its great, because that means you'd be as aggressive with them in the early game. Spam the ever-living hell out of all of your grade 1s, and then when your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw down the PG, give them the middle finger, and you're good to go. Unless your opponent trigger attacks you at the very start of the game and puts you to 5 damage before either side gets to grade 3, 9 times out of 10, you're not using Ridicule Disruptor's ability to like the very end game because your hand will constantly be filling up with cards thanks to Liael Odium's triple drive, and also the fact that most of your rear guards will just be superior calling from your regress gauge. So Ridicule Disruptor is a nice PG to have for when you actually do need the defensive capabilities to come down. You can run the original version of this, Skill Hate Dragon or Repelled Malice Dragon. They have the exact same skill as Ridicule Disruptor. I choose to make it Ridicule Disruptor though because she came out closer to the time of Liael Odium's release. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, which is arguably the most important card in the deck because without her you wouldn't be able to set the Destined Timepiece, and that is Steam Maiden Tiglot. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto placed by riding from a grade 0 unit. Reveal a grade 3 card Liael in the card name from your ride deck and put a Destined Timepiece token into your order zone. Cool. It can basically single-handedly self-trigger your deck's entire gimmick as long as she rides from a grade 0, which technically means the gear quetzal is the most important because it's a grade 0 that she rides from, but hey, it gets you a free set order and it's the deck's entire gimmick, so obviously you gotta run this as a 1-up in the ride deck. Moving on to our grade 2s, we run 3 copies of Steam Gunner Tizkar. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, base, auto when placed on guard circle from the hand or discard from the hand while riding from right deck specifically. Counterblast 1 or energy buster to draw a card. Cool. We do have a few more cards now that eat into the EB, and we have a few more cards now that eat into the CB, but on the bright side, if you end up having spare CB or energy lying around, you can just CB1 with her skill to draw a card, which is evened out thanks to Zimri's ability to basically get both of those resources back in an instant. And then auto when placed on rear guard circle, if you persona of this turn, CB1 or energy blast 3 again, and you may soul charge 1, and until end of turn she'll get boost and 5k power. Best part is you don't have to soul charge to get the boost and 5k power, she'll get that regardless. So if you ever feel like you're going to deck out from that soul charge, you don't have to do it. And she has the alternating cost of CB and energy, so whichever one you're more free of, you can use that one. And again, she's really great with being discard fodder for your ride deck, so you can recycle your hand cards, or just being on guard circle and then possibly getting you a card that helps you survive through the turn. Unarmed his card is a very solid grade 2. I love having her in this deck, which is why I have her as 3 of, even though technically you shouldn't because you are running into more resources problems having her, but I like having her in anyway, so I'm going to go against that logic. Then we have 3 copies of Instant Asunder Colossus. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield 10k base. Random fun fact about me. So we all know I love the moon. We all know I love dogs specifically, but the thing is that one of my favorite words is asunder. So the second I saw this thing's name in the anime, I immediately fell in love with it. So auto gauge zone. At the beginning of your battle phase, if this card is a regress gauge, CB1, choose a card from your drop zone, put it face up as a regress gauge, and if you put a card, call this card to rear guard circle. Okay, my hate with this skill. This is word for word the exact same thing as a Nuncarus dragon. On the bright side, you now have 2 Nuncarus dragons who can essentially keep sending other copies of themselves and or each other into the regress gauge. So if you are playing against an opponent that's going to constantly kill your rear guards, you can just use all of your CB on those 2 and keep calling them back in loops, and then use your EB on Tizcar. So 3 copies of Colossus just for that, like being able to call itself back continuously. At the continuous rear guard circle, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Liael in the card name, it gets auto rear guard when it attacks, soul blast 2 cards to draw a card, and 5000 power during both players' turns. Being able to be an on attack soul blast to draw is great for increasing hand, especially because before Liael had a lot of soul that she didn't know what to do with. Now it does hurt a little bit because now you're using 3 soul every turn, 1 from the triple drive, 2 from his skill. But on the bright side, at least it's not a mandatory soul blast 2, and it does increase your hand, so technically you get 4 draws, though you know the triple drive and then like the 1 draw from his skill. And not to mention that during both players' turns will be a 15k base, so not bad because it does make your opponent a little bit harder to kill him. So cool. Hits good numbers on his own. I mean, worst case scenario, your opponent's gonna have to 5k drop this anyways, and not to mention the fact that again you do get that draw for a soul blast, and he can constantly call himself just like a Nuncarus and create the infinite call loop between those 2. So 3 of his Instant Asunder Colossus, just a good grade 2 to have for all around consistent pressure. Then we have 4 copies of Steam Burner Amiditana, grade 2 intercept 5k shield 10k base. Auto when placed on rear guard circle during your turn or put as a regress gauge during your turn, choose one range to get 5000 power for the turn. Okay, I love that this is free, it's not restricted to what your Vanguard has to be, and it does it as much as you need it to. You can just place it on rear guard. The second you hit grade 2, he'll get 5k or someone else will get 5k. The second you regress gauge it, someone gets 5k. You can regress gauge it the same turn you called it to rear guard circle and someone will still get 5k. And again, this is a free 5k, it can pick anyone, and it doesn't even require you to be on a Liael, meaning you can proc this literally the second you start putting stuff in regress gauge. Actually, you don't even need to put stuff in your regress gauge because it doesn't require stuff to be in your regress gauge for this. Around Amiditana is just a very solid support card. Like, he's just a free 5k that can go to straight up anywhere and allows you to consistently rush your opponents. So honestly, good grade 2. He's very simplistic, but he's very good to the point where I feel like Amiditana would just be in the Liael Odium deck regardless as like a solid 4 of or 3 of, just because of how good he is. Like 4 of. I can't say anything else about it. And then we have 1 copy in the red deck, none in the main deck, of our last grade 2 Life Sensation Colossus. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield 10k base. Auto when placed by writing from Steam Maiden Tiglet specifically. Put a hand card face up as a regress gauge and draw 2 cards. Cool. Puts 1 card face up in the regress gauge. You swap it off for 2 more. So you automatically have 1 regress gauge that you can start using for resources on the next turn. But on the bright side to that as well, that automatically sets you up to use cards like Instant Asunder Colossus and an Nuncarus Dragon over here on your grade 2 turn, meaning you can bully down your opponent with rear guards. And again, it gives you 2 more hand cards, so you can be a little bit more aggressive with that play or be a little bit more defensive with that play. Life Sensation Colossus is just all around a pretty good grade 2 to help the game transition from the very start to the mid game. So obviously you gotta have this as a 1 of in the right deck. It's just perfect for what it does. Moving on to 4 copies of Distorted Bane. This is our grade 3 order. Played if your Vanguard's a Liael, you may soul charge 1 and put this card as a face up as your regress gauge. So on the bright side, you don't have to soul charge this because again, you could end up decking yourself out. So you can just put it as a regress gauge normally. And then auto, when it's put as a regress gauge, you do have to draw a card, so it could deck you out. And then you choose one of your Vanguards, give it 10,000 power for the turn. Cool. Get you Soul that you can use for both the Vanguard and for Instant Asunder, not to mention the fact that it does get you a Regress Gauge for free, and it also gets you a hand card to replace it, and it gives your Vanguard plus 10,000 power, which will always be the weakest attack, because the Vanguard also powers up your rear guards for every Disordered Bane in your Regress Gauge. All around, good order. Get you numbers, get you hand cards, get you resources, and just does everything the deck needs in one card. The only downside is this could technically be the thing that screws you over, because thanks to being in the Regress Gauge, you do actually need to hit this as soon as possible, and if you're like me and you only see one a game, it's really hard to win since it's your main way to activate Liael Odium's Divine Skill. So 4 copies of the Distorted Bane. Good for numbers. You just want to make sure you see this and can activate this as soon as possible, which is again why I recommend you that one grade 1 that can send an order to drop zone from deck and then immediately play it. That brings us over to 4 copies of Anachorus Dragon, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 13k base, persona ride, or not 5k shield, no shield, and then auto gauge zone at the beginning of your battle phase. If this card's a regress gauge, just like Instant Asunder, counter boss 1, choose a card from your drop zone, put it as a regress gauge, and call it to rear guard circle. So again, more rear guard pressure. If you end up having both Anachorus and Instant Asunder in your hand when you would put something into your gauge via Life Sensation Colossus, always put the dragon first, because you can just hard call Asunder, and then during the battle phase, just call the dragon out, because you most likely have a CB, since regardless of who went first or second, the second you hit grade 2, you probably have at least one CB, so you can definitely feel free to call Anachorus Dragon. And then auto rearguard when it attacks a Vanguard. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or grade Liael, regardless of a grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, gets 5,000 power. So 18k swing already, which is great. But then if you have 3 or more cards in your regress gauge, Energy Boss 2, choose an opponent's rearguard, kill it. So if you do have 3 or more regress gauges, and this is your first grade 3 turn, you obviously use Distorted Bane, and because of Liael Odium's skill, he'll get another 5k. So Anachorus will be swinging at a grade 2 Vanguard with 23k with the ability to nuke off a rear guard. The best part is that Anachorus Dragon can just be used to constantly kill off rear guards and just pressure down the opponent, and even if they do end up surviving your Divine Skill turn, if you Divine Skill with like 2 Anachorus Dragons on board, and you have the energy for it, you essentially just board nuke your opponent while also making sure that if they do walk away with this alive, they're going to walk away incredibly crippled. So I love having Anachorus in here. It constantly swings for good numbers, and you either kill off your opponent's rear guards or add cards to your hand. All around, Anachorus is really good as just an overall pressure and a beatdown card, because again, you can superior call it while your opponent's at grade 2, and very few cards can do that. Hell, you can even do it while your opponent's at grade 1. So 4 copies of Anachorus Dragon, just all around good for pressure and beatdown. And that takes us over to the last card in the deck, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the red deck of Destin, 1 of Time, Liael Odium. Grade 3 Trinidad Persona Ride, 13k base, contains Vanguard Circle. During your turn, all your former rear guards get 5,000 power for each Distorted Bane in your regress gauge. So being able to give all of your front row units that isn't herself just 5k power for just the one that you play on your grade 3 turn automatically makes her solid for that, because that means this will be an 18k, technically 23k when it swings, and this will be a 20k, which is great. And then every time you play Distorted Bane, it'll get stronger and stronger. And then Auto Vanguard, when it attacks Soul Blast, when choose a card from your hand or on your rear guard circle. Worst case scenario, if you have to call Amatitana, there you go. You can then put it as a regress gauge, and if you put a card, she'll get triple drive. Specifically triple drive, not drive +1. So cool, she'll have the ability to increase her drive checks, and she can put it from anywhere, and the only downside is only 1 Soul Blast, which again, outside of Instant Asunder Colossus, you don't really have any competition for Soul. And the best part is, this is a way for you to constantly trigger more Disordered Banes, because Disordered Bane just has to be put as a regress gauge by any means. It doesn't have to be put by its own ability. So, worst case scenario, if you're trying to like kill your opponent, or you don't have time to like wait for more regress gauges because you're probably going to die on the next turn, Soul Blast 1, put a regress gauge from your hand into the regress gauges, and then you get to draw a card, 10k, still get triple drive for Odium, and then all your other frontal rear guards also get 5,000 power because another Disordered Bane entered the regress gauge. It's a really good offensive way to actually use your Disordered Banes, but again, just an easy way to get triple drive in general. And then finally, the selling point of Odium, the Divine Skill, Auto Vanguard, at the end battle that she attacked, if you have a 5 or more regress gauges, ditch 2 cards and you get an additional turn, and until the end of that additional turn, she'll lose a drive. When you end up Soul Blasting to get triple drive for her, she'll just turn into twin drive for the record, but she'll still technically have triple drive, so that Blitz Order PG that specifically is free when your opponent has triple drive would still proc, and the ride phase and main phase are not performed during the additional turn. So downside is, on that additional turn, whatever's stuck on your board is stuck on your board. Whatever resources you lost, you're not getting back, which means you don't get free energy. But on the bright side, this is why we have Zimri to recharge our energy, and again, you get to pressure down your opponent with a total of 6 attacks, and any defensive triggers they got on the first turn are no longer applicable during the second turn. And it's only a discard of 2, which you will have thanks to your triple drive, since it happens at the end of the battle, and even if you don't give her triple drive because you're afraid of decking out, you'll still have it because you did a twin drive. So all around, Liael Odium is really great for pressure. She gives 5k for every distorted bane, which can easily turn into 10, which can easily turn into 15. I never hit 20 because typically someone dies by then. She can get triple drive for literally the easiest and most freest cost in the world, while also still triggering her very good support card. And she has an ability that literally just lets you skip your opponent's turn and then essentially screw them over if they got defensives or they tried to play around it with defensives. All around, amazing consistently overall for pressure, and once she gets going and is incredibly hard to stop. So 3 in the main deck of Liael Odium, 1 in the right deck. And without further ado, that's it for this one. I hope all of you enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is really fun to play. You're getting a consistent amount of soul charge every game. You're getting constant rearguard pressure with an Acros Dragon, Instant Asunder Colossus. You have really good supporting cards in Amaditana and Zimri, and just have great cards all around that support the deck in many different ways. So without further ado, I'm going to end this one here. I hope all of you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us on Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget up your Vanguards.